right, so we're gonna get this thing rolling. This is an outlaw panel, and this is three people that, they may not all consider themselves outlaws, but they're definitely outlaws. They come from a long background of dealing with the police and bullshit over a plant that should have never been illegal in the first place. And Kevin's joining us from, where are you joining us from, Kevin?
I'm at my house in Miranda, in Humboldt.
Nice. So the first question I have for the outlaw panel is, what is an outlaw to you? And I guess that'll go to Kevin first, since we know Patrick gets loud. Kevin will be able to talk over him.
Growing up, I never used the term outlaw. Outlaw I got introduced to when I got to Humboldt because they had a different view on what they did. Where I was raised, it was you were just a criminal. And so you kind of learn how to live in that reality, just like you do in the outlaw reality. So when you're multi-generational, you kind of understand the similarity between the two words. It's just that outlaw, it kind of fits in the West because the West had space. You could go out there and carve a little piece of your own world and really live like you were outside the law. But once the law gets up in your ass, you're a criminal. And so it's really an odd relationship between the two realms. But I think a lot of it really is outlaws. You're just trying to live in existence without being so compressed by the pressure of, as a bureaucracy. The ability to live a simple life where you wanted to grow your own food, people who wanted to build their own homes, people who wanted to develop their own artistic abilities because now they had time, or people who wanted to express themselves as human beings without really being measured by the same way the rest of the world kind of measures. It was a really interesting thing for me to see when I got out here. So outlaw is like it only happens in little pockets, and only happens so many times through the centuries, because they're little nice microcosms of what's possible when people want to do something unique, and then it explodes and brings attention, and then it collapses. But outlaws are really, historically, people who wanted to live outside the norm and have a better life.
Patrick? Same question. This panel, just to show everyone, full disclosure, this panel's name, it was inspired by that.
I'm doing a panel this year called, we're doing a tour, it's called the Legends of Legacy David Personalized Tour. We're going to try to take it everywhere, and this is what it's about. It's about an outlaw. I always said, I'm an outlaw turned pioneer, right? So I broke the boundaries of of being an outlaw. I'm an outcast. I've been since fucking day one, I'll tell you that. An outlaw to me, my whole life is, what probably won't get into a lot of different things, but the time I've done behind bars, and, my lifestyle, being homeless as a kid and living on my own, I was an outcast. I didn't know what that felt good. That didn't feel good inside growing up. But when I converted that to the message of being an outlaw, that related to following my passion, no matter fucking what. Okay? I had a drive, I had a fucking goal, I'm a visionary, and no matter who gets in my way, I'm going to listen to this 12-year-old boy inside me as he's guiding me, and he's the one clapping saying, go, you can do it, just hammer it down, don't listen to the fucking naysayers, just do what you got to do. That's what an outlaw to me is. Somebody that is willing to go the length of the cause. Go the length of the cause. That being said, my cause is pioneering, being a tool in the arsenal chest, being a grain of sand of Mother Nature, being an asset to our future. What am I going to leave behind? I ask myself that all the time. It doesn't fucking matter as long as I leave something of value behind. Right? I'm a fifth generation Johnny Appleseed. Prime example. What did he leave behind? He touched the hearts of children all around the world. Right? What better monetary contribution is there in the world than that? He was a grain in the sand that lasted time. Okay, so being an outlaw is just something that was a badge you wear. I never ratted on anybody, I never told anybody, I had time for other people. That's another outlet. And I fight the fight, and I believe in myself, and I believe in my cause, and my cause gets changed with other knowledge factors that come in from other people like Kevin, like Wendy, like you guys out there. So the vision is a tunnel vision. It's here. My outlaw life brought me to where I'm at today, and it's a pioneering life.
You touched on going to jail. Can you tell us about the first time you went to jail?
Thank God I went to jail. The biggest asset in my life was being a hardhead and doing things over, not, learning the cause and the results. So, first time in handcuffs was at the age of 11. So we're on weed in the pine tree on our backyard. We had a pretty big backyard. Nobody would know. I thought, because I built platforms way up in this fucking tree, I go up and water it. And everybody walks around and they look at their feet, right? This is the common goal. Nobody looks up, right? This is Hawaiian style cultivation, by the way. And I didn't realize my neighbor was watching me this whole time. And as I was sitting up there one time and I'm over watering my pots, I'm pulling up fucking water jugs, right? And we're pouring it in and it's dripping and I saw my neighbor and I'm like, oh, this might not be good. Walking by. Next thing you know, I'm in handcuffs and going to jail and, not learning shit. I repeated that the next year, same pine tree, same neighbor, same situation, probably the same handcuffs. But I don't have any, where I'm at today from then, I can tell you the story because this was the story that created who I am, right? And I love myself today because of this. I learned a valuable lesson in a relationship with a 12-year-old boy. And he's right here with me listening to talk to me. Yeah, that was it. It was gone. It's not 3 hours.
I had so much more, and I forgot all about it because I would say so hated the whole story. I don't, Patrick said there's no difference between the criminal, or what do you guys said, there's no difference between a criminal and an outlaw, except for my theories, except for one gets caught. But I also really don't think that outlaws, there's an honor to it. So growing up in Humboldt County, it was always cannabis everywhere. Everybody grew weed. It was just second nature, but nobody ever talked about it. This was back in the 70s and 80s for me. And it was definitely something that, if you ask anybody who grew up in Humboldt County what their parents did in the 70s, 80s, or even into the 90s, well, we cut firewood, we had a lot of houses that got built, quote unquote, we had a lot of landscaping that got done, and a lot of odd jobs that happened. So most people paid taxes, most people claimed income, most people did something, they just really weren't doing that, they were growing weed. And because of that, we didn't, you didn't talk about it, this is what happened, everybody does something else. And there became a real code of weird honor and secrecy behind it. So like Pat was saying, you never ratted on anybody, you never turned on anybody. Most of the people in Humboldt County, the people especially that I was friends with and still am to this day, are the people that took one for the team. We weren't growing alone, hardly anybody ever grew by themselves, especially not when you got into these hundreds of plants in the middle of the poison oak and the blackberries and you're crawling through, it was not done by a single person, but when somebody got caught, one person went to jail. Nobody else did.
That's an outlaw.
That's an outlaw. There's an honor to it. There's a code to it. We still believe in that code. People that go online now and they say, oh, I'm a legal cannabis grower and if your neighbors are doing this illegally, you should turn them in. We're like, oh, no, you don't. That is not cannabis culture. That is not outlaw culture. We hold each other's backs. We hold each other up. We help each other out. Somebody went to jail, something happened, we took care of whatever needed to be taken care of while they were there, taking the fall for the people that they worked with. It's an incredibly important part of the culture that we come from. There's a lot of cannabis industry now that is not embracing the culture, and there's a lot of culture that's pushing back on the industry. I think it's not David versus Goliath. I think it needs to be David and Goliath. Goliath isn't going down, but maybe we can
He's going to
find a
respect
way.
us. He's going to respect us.
Exactly.
We're
There's
here.
a way we can work together. We're here, we're not going anywhere.
And And he's
Their routine
prospering
should go up.
because of us. And that's recognition that's gonna be fucking held. That's a table that I'm gonna pull out the chair and allow you to sit at, but at one time, you're gonna look me in the eyes and fucking thank me.
Agreed. Totally agree.
We can work together, but it's on our terms, not your terms.
And don't you fucking dare disrespect us, because we've been doing this for way fucking longer than you can imagine.
All right. One of the things Wendy kind of touched on was culture, cannabis culture and culture in Humboldt. And I know for Kevin, I'm pretty sure that's the reason why he ended up in Humboldt. So I'm just wondering what his take is, and can you kind of explain to us your history with Humboldt personally and why you ended up there?
Yeah, sure. I got to California in '87, right? So, when I got to California is when I was really like made aware of Humboldt County. I actually learned about Humboldt County sitting in a nightclub that had like a beautiful daytime lounge in Kauai, and I bought a book, and it was a book about Humboldt County dope growers. And I couldn't believe it because I had been involved in marijuana business in Rhode Island. And so when I'm in the military, I get turned on to this place in Northern California that has this bustling cannabis industry. But I was from career crime. My family was professional outlaws. And so to me, I saw the commonality about the culture easily because it was really like in every society in every part of the world I've been in, anywhere where you have a level below the super elite, you kind of have to forage for what you can, and so you learn to work together more collaboratively. So the similarity was pretty easy to understand, but I couldn't believe that people were able to cultivate cannabis outdoors in such a fucking awesome manner. And so I knew Humboldt existed, but I lived in the Bay Area, and the Bay Area was jamming at the time. So I had to connect in Mendo, but I didn't have any friends in Humboldt. But I used to restore lighthouses. And so I had done a series of lighthouse restorations up the West Coast. So I did them all over the Bay Area, down into the Central Coast. And when we went to do Humboldt County, I said, oh, I'm down. And when I went there, I had some friends by this point that had family up in Humboldt. So when I showed up in Humboldt, their family members met me because they already knew that I was getting vetted in from my girl at the time. And it allowed me to open a door the day I got there that those people I met 30 years ago when I got there, I still hang out with today. So Humboldt was like this supernatural place where people, the easiest way to explain it is that when you took the amount of money that was made in Humboldt County, which was about $8 billion in wholesale cannabis, and you distributed that over the population, it means that every single living person in Humboldt was making about $64,000 tax-free a year. So if you had 4 or 5 in a house, you're making like a tax-free $250,000, which means really every family was making $400,000 a year. So when you lived in Humboldt, everybody had nice shit. There was really no stealing. Like you could leave all this nice shit in your truck unlocked and nobody would steal your shit because they had nicer shit than you. Every one of your neighbors had an open door policy, like where I've never had house keys in 30, I've never locked my fucking house. I don't know where the house keys are. So I've never lived in a place where you don't need house keys. Like that's really like the best description. That's why I named my brand Port Royale. Because Port Royale was that port in Jamaica that was this fucking legendary pirate port. And it was so ballin' and so out of control because there were so many pirates dumping their goods there. That for 100 years it was the most lucrative wild seaport in history, but it was so much fucking money that nobody had to lock the doors because everybody had plenty. And so Humboldt was the first place and the only place in my entire life where everyone had enough. It was like the richest, most developed hippie enclave ever fucking created. It was this crazy merging of every culture who wanted to get into this picture, but the nature of Humboldt limited the number of people that could get in because the amount of land that's owned is owned by families. So you don't have the ability to just get in. And so lo and behold, you can kind of protect places by buying property if people were having problems. You could loan property. You could work collaboratively to make money so that you could recover the losses from the beating, from the cops stealing all your shit. Like, it was really interesting fucking time. So Humboldt was so interesting to me, I never left. But I really went here to a lighthouse. There's Shelter Lighthouse.
I'm wondering, because, you know, I live in Humboldt now, and it's pretty clear that that's not the situation these days. And I'm wondering what all three of your perspectives are, and we'll just start with you, Kevin, and then we'll.
Not fucking Murder Mountain, I'll tell you that.
Sometimes it is. It's the hood in the hood. Everybody's got a hood, very much one, but I'm telling you, there's some really good growing in that area too. You know, it used some cultivating. But the area is stunning. All in all, Humboldt County, it just, if you look at it over the course of its time, bigger than cannabis and bigger than us. We're different than any other part of the cannabis industry. We really are, and there's a lot, we can say different how many different ways, but ultimately, Humboldt County is one of the most visually stunning places on the planet. There's very few things quite like that. And so what we've had though is we've had this extraction from the region since the mining era. So when they came in and mined, then they started cutting the redwoods to do the mining and the sluice and the chutes and the development and the earthquake, and they started logging. In the 50s they logged, 80s they cleaned it all out. And then we come in as cultivators and we're trying to understand what land stewardship means, because we're trying to like, how do you really like build a healthy forest, and how do you work as neighbors to protect from forest fire, and how do you work with systems with water, and like you start to learn some really interesting things about a place. And what you learn is that the place is more powerful than cannabis. Cannabis is a global plant. But cannabis isn't indigenous to Humboldt. It just has an incredible relationship in Humboldt. So what you have to do really, I think, is learn how to step back a minute from what we know of cannabis and understand how we understand Humboldt, and how to use the tool that Humboldt really is to be able to start to showcase an existence, a destination, an experience, and cannabis then fills the appropriate role. With me right now, cannabis is like this fucking mule that's exhausted because everybody's riding on the back of this fucking thing. They can't ride it until this boogie's falling down and shit. And they're like, no, you can't fall down, you're the only mule I have. And I'm like, get the fuck off and walk. But the problem is people rode her so hard, they don't know how to let go of the goddamn reins. And what you have to do is you gotta realize that the game has changed so fucking dramatically so quickly, that the thing you have to do is just step out of the game for a second and realize it's a swirling tornado, and that you're not going to get peak time, you're not going to get peak perfection, you're going to get some luck, and then you're going to get a flailing. And so you have to be able to say, well, wait a minute, what do we do in some of our regions that were these craft regions? And the reason why they were craft regions in California is because they were stunning pieces of fucking real estate that people would want to live in seclusion, and cannabis happened to be the financial vehicle. But the point is, this real estate is some of the nicest real estate in the state of California, and it just has to be a direction on how do you repurpose the tools that you hold, so that what you're able to do is use your cannabis ability as your value added, until this thing stabilizes over time. But we're using cannabis as the primary driver because it's what we've always relied on. And so when you develop a skill set so deeply in one thing, you start to believe it's the only place those skills can be placed. And you just really have to pull back and understand, like, well, hopefully you must have learned something in 40 fucking years. So what did you learn, and what do you think that you could add value to? And once you understand where you can bring a positive benefit, that's an audience that you go work with to draw attention to what you're doing in cannabis, and then enter through those routes. But we're not, the craft regions, I think, are some of the nicest property in the world, really, in California. So it's just really a matter of how do you start to take these places and allow the rest of the world to come in and to enjoy some form of relaxation in a place that's stunning, and let cannabis do the work she's supposed to, which is provide their relationship that they define.
So, pretty much the same question, Patrick. What do you see as the way forward with the plight that the small farmers face in Humboldt? What can they do? Because everywhere else is following suit. And I know that you have a history with advocacy in your own life. And we've talked about in the last few days, bringing our own kids out to protest and address tax and the 85% reduction that's occurred because of that. What do you see? Because Humboldt, like I said, it feels very different than that to me. Being there now, when I'm a kid, the questions that they've asked. There's homeless people everywhere. It's not that community anymore. There's a lot of sadness. You can fucking feel it. It's not a good feeling. Things have been taken away, and it feels, there's some hope, but it feels oppressive to some people.
The doom and gloom, right? We're in that time right now. And also just Humboldt. We're talking the Emerald Triangle, there's Trinity, there's also Mendocino County, and even coming up the front from Sonoma County. It's the most gorgeous region, all of it. It's just absolutely beautiful. But to go back on what Kevin, and I'll go into that, is that we got like a tribe. We have a community of loving unity, community. It's the most impactful experience of community I've ever seen anywhere, except for when I'm on the Big Island in the Lower Puna District on the Big Island of Hawaii. I feel that too, right? And so we are one nation, like one tribe. It's people who generally want your success and love, right? It's just I've never felt this in my life, and I'm drawn to that. And we are lost a lot. So, when I first said Murder Mountain, yeah, there's criminals and there's things going on, and we've done a lot of fucking crimes up in the mountains ourselves, but I'm sure we'll get into that here in the next 2.5 hours we got left, right? But I introduce, you see me hugging Wendy, you see me introducing Kevin, this is my tribe, this is my people. Like, we are unique because we have this power of a relationship with Mother Nature. You're walking through the redwood forest and you grab a piece of fallen redwood, you pull the bark over and you see this mycelium madness, and you suddenly realize that you've got hundreds of miles of mycelium under every foot, and then you open up your mind and your experience is outside. I always say amateur naturalist. Okay, so I'm an amateur naturalist. I didn't get bred in a classroom where somebody taught me this is A, B, this is the corners, these are your parameters of education. There's nothing outside the box. Fuck, I live outside the box, right? If you open your mind, you open your heart, you really see outside of what the teachings of humanity has taught you. There's a whole different world out there. In Humboldt County and that whole region is like people like that. It's absolutely amazing. So I'll go into more. I just wanted to highlight on some of that. But what was the question? It was real.
Humboldt County was the question.
Humboldt seems to continue.
Got it. Where we're at now. So we're time flashing to now. Now we don't see all that love and morph this, right? We lost it in probably when Prop 64 came alive. We seen everybody all of a sudden shut their doors, and it became. This is my snapshot of what I felt, right? Not what I seen, but what I felt. All of a sudden, our cannabis culture and our cannabis community became in competition. There was trade secrets all of a sudden the world was going to find out about, right? I have to work with a distributor. I'm not going to tell somebody who's a distributor. What are you getting for your weed? I can't tell my neighbor now. All this weird stuff started happening in our community at 64 imploded, right? And our farm, we always talk about the farmers markets. We did the most. There's no segregation in fucking agriculture. There's no segregation in agriculture. We had farmers markets that had everything from the artist of the necklace to, someone with fermentation it was cannabis, it was food, it was weed, it was all this, and it was, and cash didn't fucking matter. It was a barter trade value, right? And that was the other beautiful part of it, right? We made money outside, but we traded in-house, okay? It was that community feel. So when Prop 64 came, that imploded. And all of a sudden, we weren't allowed to do farmers markets anymore because we were going to get fined, we were going to lose our licenses. They had something now. Instead of dropping helicopters, they were asking us for $100,000 in fucking fees, and then they were going to take our license away and keep our money. So all of a sudden, we all went into this competition mode, and then the implosion happened. Small farmers in Northern California. And now I'm just going to give you a snapshot. Now we're coming out of that. And we're realizing the value we had for so many years together as unity, that was the most important thing that we ever had. Me and Wendy sitting right here, buddies, right? Kevin, James coming into the community. I mean, it is love and honor and respect, right? And that's all coming back now. And we're trying to find our footholds of how it happens, where we're going, and how do we either leave or not. And this leads me into the next question. Next answer to the question, is where do we go now? You brand yourself. I've said this for fucking years in our community. Get a brand. Brand yourself. Invest in self. Constantly invest in self. Always invest in self. When you're working for somebody else, or you're doing something and you're investing your time in their brand, you're not investing, you're losing time investing in your own brand. I invest in Wendy, in Sonobus, because there's a reciprocal relationship that happens where she returns the favor and invests in me. Right? So we're this reciprocal, going around. We're sharing the assets. So branding is the most important. If you are in other states and you're wondering how do you get out there in the world now in cannabis, do something real. Right? I have a story. I always say there's a story in any marketing plan and brand or anything you're doing. Have a story. I go and I buy, jewelry for my girl, and I'm looking at the baddest looking turquoise off this guy that found it in the fucking hills of Arizona, and she's like, well, maybe someday you can get a diamond. I'm like, what the fuck? Look at the story of the diamond. I'm not putting a diamond on you. That diamond's worth shit to me. This thing, I know the guy who went out with the pick, he went out with the pan, he's put his whole life in it, and he found this one gem. Is it valuable to the world? Who gives a fuck? It's valuable to me, and I'm going to put it on display in my house, and I'm going to tell this story I just told you. That's branding, okay? That's marketing, that's branding. So in every brand, there has to be a story behind it. Corporate cannabis in a big warehouse, what story do they have? Not a story I'm willing to tell. That's the fucking diamond, right? That's the fucking diamond, okay? We are better than this. You guys are here at this conference, this education. You have your own craft. You're putting energy into self, right? You're self-branding. Get a brand. Start sharing your brand with like-minded individuals like us. Start talking to other people and let us say, hey, man, that guy, he's educated me. He just gave me a thought. I'm like, okay, let's talk. Right? And that's how this brand yourself and come up and do your craft. Be proud of your fucking craft. Share it with the world. And again, in pioneering, you are not going to have people that get along with you or like you. In fact, most of your friends are going to fucking hate you once they realize you're powered up. Okay? That's what's going to happen. So don't worry about what other people are doing. Do you. If they say your logo sucks, fuck them. You like your logo? Who gives a fuck what they think? There's a million other people out there, and that one guy that says he doesn't like it is probably just pissed off because you got a better logo than him anyway, right? Now, it starts with that kind of stuff. Do you be individual, be a spirit of individual. So the salvation of our industry in Northern California, and I preached this for many, many years. Ken, you've heard me. You've definitely heard me. Is brand yourself outside of California, outside of the Emerald. As California, state of California, and big corporation are destroying us, and their whole agenda is to put us out, right? You if you branding other places and people, Soil King's recognized all over because I put all the energy in self. Some people, I say things that I take back at times, but I always forgive myself for that because I say things that are wrong and then I have to go out and ask for forgiveness. I'm a humble individual on that. But then my belief mechanism, I really have to feel that it's wrong, not because you tell me. Right? We had a whole thing as I was going out and I was talking to Winnie earlier. Right? I go out and I see these fields across America. And everybody's like, look at this rich soil. There's fucking hundreds of acres everywhere. It's black, it's rich. And I'm looking, where's the cover crop? Where's the weeds? Like, where's the companion plant? Where's the heritage plants? Right? Where are this? And then I go out and I say, it's fucking soil genocide. I say that stuff, right? But then I have to be schooled on that word might not be the right fitting for it. But for me, I understand that. So now I take that word back and I'm trying to replay with it. But the meaning is still there, right? I look at fields of nothing and it makes me cry. It destroys my spirit, okay? Because I know that biology, I know that fungal I know that, in a trillion forms of bacteria, a fucking teaspoon should be there. It's not there. Gone. Okay? And then we got all these, farmers out there going, I got the best crops ever. We'll throw another thing of fucking GMO corn. We're gonna plant it with this next. And I'm just like, it makes me cry inside because we can do something and the data is proven it on a bigger, better regenerative scale. And nobody's listening. Right? Nobody listens to us. We were just a few people at one point. Look at us now. Now I'm just going to keep talking. We've got 3 hours. This goes into fucking pioneering. We might be outlaws, and you might be outlaws, right? But some of you are just coming into this. And with like the Ganjier program, I tell all my students, I'm getting old and beat up, right? I'm running out of energy, and I have this message. And I pioneered a lot of shit and been part of a tool for pioneering with a small amount of people. But you are the new frontier of pioneers. You're pioneers in the future. You're taking off this and changing the world right now. This whole conference right here is about responsible farming. All right? It's about intention farming. It's about love of the planet. It's about being an arsenal and a weapon for Mother Earth. Right? We are giving back, right? We're doing something great. So now all of a sudden, you guys are going to take off and you're going to be out there sharing this message. That's fucking pioneering. Okay? That's pioneering. So we got a whole room right now of pioneers. Doesn't mean I got to this point. You're going to take it to the next point. It's going to be put more energy and better. Your results are going to be way better than mine because I fucked up along the way all the time. So yes, do we have, now going back to Humboldt County and the salvation of what we have left, man, there's some of us, not very many. Mendocino County's got like 5 farms that are licensed left right now, or there's probably a few more because everybody's not got the CEQA, right? Everybody's decided not to grow in Mendocino this year and hold off and see what happens. But, out of 6,500 farms down to fucking 100 that aren't even going to be operational, down to 5 that are probably going to be operational, is a sad fucking situation to be in. Humboldt County is taking the initiative right now to stop excise tax, which is actually going to wake up the fucking state, hopefully. And the reason why Humboldt County was able to get that passed was because finally the numbers of people showed up and demanded it. Okay, through Prop 64 and all the activism we did, there was only a couple of us that would show up screaming. We looked like a fucking bunch of idiots. And I would say, where's the numbers? All you guys, and everybody wanted cannabis and licensing, and they go, yeah, you're doing a good job, keep doing it. I'm like, where the fuck were you at? Well, I really couldn't make it right now. And I'm like, so we're going to do all this. This failure is on you guys. Because you're too fucking lazy to show up. So now you watch Humboldt County, they're done. Right? So they have to come out. And that was the visual cap that I seen, is there was numbers and there was enough pressure that it was an oh fuck number. We're really going to take over this fucking county and kick you board of supervisors off the fucking hill. Right? That's kind of the messaging that happened that we missed in the state.
So
right? And that's the messaging to go out to all your jurisdictions when you guys get legal cannabis. Don't be the only one. And call out the motherfuckers that aren't showing up that are gonna prosper. Where the fuck are you at? Numbers are loud. We can't buy people to go, what is that called when you buy somebody and they go up and show up for it? Lobbyists. We can't afford fuck. I'm a goddamn lobbyist. I'm free, right? Show the fuck up. Make change happen.
Real quick though, like, also, it's not just that people are too lazy to show up, a lot of people are too scared. Like, a lot of people
This is true.
really were, especially coming from these legacy cultivation places where we didn't talk about it, you know? We didn't grow weed, we cut firewood, we did other things.
But you wanted to get a license and legal, so you have to jump that
Well,
bridge
then
at
we
one
also
point or
had,
another.
we also had people telling us there was a specific point in the Measure X tax, when I was told, I was like, I am against this, and they're like, don't say that. Don't say you're against taxation. I was like, but I am. I'm absolutely against an excise tax for a wholesale crop that nothing else is taxed at wholesale level. Nothing is taxed at wholesale levels except for cannabis. It is taxed at the retail level. This is standard business across the board.
We both read the bill too, we didn't vote for it,
Yeah,
right?
right, well, I was active against it, but I was told, don't say you're against the tax. Just say, you don't think this one's quite right, you can be done better. And I ended up being kind of bullied into that paradigm, into not speaking my truth. And I still regret it to this day. And when I went up and spoke at the board of supervisors, well, called in, I said, you know, I was against this from the beginning. And I was told to stop rocking the boat. Don't stop rocking the boat. Every time I stop rocking the boat, it's been years down the line, and I watch county after county follow suit with what Humboldt County did, and everybody goes, oh my God, this was horrible. Rock the fucking boat. Make people listen. Get together with your friends. And if you're the only one who's out there, be the only one out there if that's what you have to do. Ideally, you inspire somebody else to come out next time, and then maybe the next time, and then finally, you have the numbers to push that, and hopefully it's not so late that you have 5 farms left out of 15,000.
It's crazy.
Okay, it is really important. Like, I harp on this all the time because it cannot be expressed enough that California went down a bad road. New York is following suit. I'm hearing that Massachusetts, it's like, California's doing great. It's pretty obvious we're not. And yet, regulators and policymakers will close their eyes and be like, well, you know, California's supposed to be amazing. So we'll just pretend like it is. We'll just do what they're doing. So, you know, wherever you're from, whatever state you're from, and even if you're not from that state, I have people that are like, will you call our people in my state and talk to them? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll talk to anybody. I'm still legal, I'm still in the game, but I'll tell you right now, it has been a long, hard road to sow. And for those people that, you know, we're talking about that didn't diversify, that are like, I don't know what to do, all I do is grow wheat. I'm like, no, you homestead, you know how to, you can teach people how to cut firewood. It actually takes some skill. You can teach people how to can, how to grow other things, how to hunt, how to fish, how to homestead. There's homestead channels that have massive views on them. But we have to think outside of that paradigm. And you have to, if you want to continue growing weed, and if that is your passion, God damn it, say so. Make sure they know.
Prime example, right here, Sunnyvale, where we at right now? Where's our brand? Right? We are all over. The reason why is because at some point, federal regulations are going to be lifted, and the state-to-state transportation is going to happen. And it's the same thing as us, the activists not showing up. And I can tell them, brand outside of California, and they're going to, then all of a sudden it's going to lift, and the same people are going to sit back there and go, oh great, we got to get our weed over there. And everybody's going to go, who are you? They're going, we know them, we know him, we know these people. So brand outside, brand yourself. I would say one thing that's most important for you, yourself, create a brand and fucking throw it out in the universe. Believe in it.
I think it's really important to point out too, that when it goes federally legal, if you are not loud and advocating for what you want, you will have no fucking chance. I promise you, tobacco has been standing on the sidelines for years, figuring out how to do this.
They gotta
The
get that
Department of
fucking
Weights and Measures on a federal level just figured out how to weigh cannabis.
They're talking about
They're
it.
talking about it.
They're
So
talking about
the fact that
regulating
they're having
weight
that discussion means it's probably moving forward sooner than we all like. And I promise you, they don't give a fuck about the small guys. They will try to squeeze everyone out. They'll make it like liquor. They'll make it very, very difficult.
And if there's only a few small brands out there, they're gonna stuff us out. But if every one of you have a fucking brand, we're in numbers. right? Numbers win. Not one fucking brand, not one corporate entity, but the community of numbers together. We are better together.
All right, so we're gonna change gears a little bit, because you guys are really, really passionate about cannabis, obviously. And, why don't I know?
I'm usually over talking. I just let loose. Hello.
I want to talk to you guys about your history with cannabis, the first time you saw a plant, the first time you grew a plant, the first time you smoked a plant. Where do you start with cannabis?
I have no idea about the first time I saw a plant. It's just, they were always there, right? So, first time I smoked was probably, I think it was 13. And it was, my house was known as like the cool house. So we had this amazing giant house on the hill, and my parents let us have parties and things. And as a young preteen and early teenager, there was the candy drawer, which I was most familiar with, and then there was the weed drawer right next to it. So sometime around 13, my parents had these parties called we called them the pepper parties. So in the fall, my dad grew shitloads of peppers, and then it was always time to harvest them, and my mom was like, what are we doing with all of these? So we would throw these massive parties and have the band come up, and the only rule was you had to bring a food, and it had to be cooked with chili peppers. And so my friends came over, and we, like, everybody's partying and having fun. We're like, how are we gonna smoke weed? So we got into the weed drawer, we went up to the pond, and we figured out how to roll a joint, and nobody got, no, it wasn't, that's right, it was a homemade pipe. I had a piece of wood that I like drilled holes in, and put like the screen from your faucet, you know? That was like the little bolt catch thing. And no, we didn't get high, I don't know, we're just kinda like, this seems like a lot of hype for not really a big deal. So that, I don't think I smoked again for a couple of years at least, if not more. But the first time I grew, I think was probably when I was about 14, 15, somewhere in there. And that same little drawer also often had a bunch of seeds in it. So I decided in, I think, August, that I was gonna try growing some plants. So I took little teeny 4-inch cups, and I filled them with like dirt from like the backyard or something, and I put it on my back deck because I had a back patio on my room that like it wrapped around, but nobody was ever in there. So I had maybe 24 of these things, and I put the little seeds in, and I had a little teeny watering can, and I went out and I diligently watered these things. And if you've never grown a seed, the thing that I quickly learned that is one of the first things I tell people when they're new to growing weed, these plants have a photo period, which means that you need a certain number of daylights for them to actually grow big before they start to bloom. So at the end of, September, beginning of October, I had about 24 little tiny plants. I think they were maybe 3 or 4 inches tall. Some of them were male, some of them were female. I didn't know the difference at that time. I wasn't paying that much attention when my parents were in the garden, at least with the weed. And everything was just full of seeds, and I was just like, this is not what I expected. And I'm totally fascinated, and I can't wait for next year. And I started like scouting down by my neighbor's property and being like, okay, we're gonna actually put some bigger bags in.
Yep.
So it was a horribly failed experiment, but it was really fun.
Patrick?
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, I mean, just memories, right? And, mine was, I hung around a lot of older stoners, and thank God for album covers, right? Because you'd break up the weed, it was all seed. You're lucky to ever get a gram or an ounce or a pound or a kilo without seeds in it. And so they would break it up, and then you take the zigzag thing and you go, and the seed would fall on the ground, right? So in the back of the school, the stoner pile, way in the back, one day I noticed I was like 7, 8, right? And I noticed that, and I'm already a soil, this was my life. I knew it at my first memory was, and it's 3 years old. My very first memory was my hands, looking at my hands in the soil, tomatoes, or a strawberry patch. And this is the most consistent serenity thing from that point to sharing right now in my life, right? It's my passion, my love. And so I saw this plant, and so I remember touching it and playing with it, smelling my fingers. And that's where I learned, I didn't know the term, but it was jacking off plants, that's what we call it now. And you smell the terpene concept, right? And I was already growing things, I was already had, to my own tomato plants at 5, I was already cultivating flowers. Everybody said, well, why aren't you out there playing basketball and sports? Why do you want to go fucking grow a bunch of flower seeds or do this? What's wrong with you, boy? You should be playing with Legos, right? But it was my thing, and it was my life. And I had a hard life. It wasn't an easy life. And so that was my love and my serenity, right? So those album covers, watching that, all of a sudden I said, wow, how many seeds are coming off album covers every day, right? And so that's where it started. I started collecting seeds. And I started popping seeds. Same kind of thing as her. So I'd go up to the side of the hill and I'd start finding an area near the creek and I'd start planting these things. I learned that you can't plant in shade. I did the same thing. I hiked it up the hill and I'd go down to the creek and I'd hike up jugs of water and I would plant. And I was cracking seeds and that's where I found out male and female. Couldn't understand. Every weed that I had back then, I was getting seeds out of the weed, so I thought that was a normal thing. But I'd see these one plants that were ugly and, sturdy and flowery and just seed pods, right? The whole fucking thing, right? It was a male plant when I started. So I said, there's something to this. So I just started going in, trying to learn the cycle, and for the next number of years, I still grew. I pulled the males, but I still ended up. I didn't know they were males till after they were flowering, so they've already infected everything else. And so that's where all of that really started going into honing my craft and getting arrested and repeating offenses the rest of my life. So that's kind of where it all started for me. And here into it.
Kevin?
Yeah, when I was a kid, my neighborhood was a drug trafficking zone. And so I was aware of drugs like at an early age, but it was a different time, so that would have been the 70s. But that summer between 6th and 7th grade, my buddy Kenny, his father was a cop, but he was dirty. And when I would go over to Kenny's house, we would go into his father's room when he wasn't home, and we would look at all the shit that he stole from the people that he was jacking on the fucking streets. And we would look at all the different drugs and knives and guns and stuff that he was stealing from people and bringing to the house. And Kenny stole a pipe, and nowadays you'd call it a Sherlock, but in the day, they were made out of pipe parts and you'd screw them all together, but imagine it like clean, like a nice looking heavy metal swirled pipe, and had like an extension, so it was like a Persian Sherlock. So Kenny stole that pipe in a bag of weed, and one night when, like in early evening, we climbed up on my roof of my house, because I had this, you could jump up from the wall onto the roof, so we would sit up on the roof and chill, and we were smoking, and we got pretty lit. And so we got this idea that we were gonna go inside my garage. I had a giant empty garage, probably, a couple 1,000 square foot garage. And it was empty at the time, and we put a strobe light in. And so we were like 12. And so we put a strobe light in the garage, and we turned it on, and we got high, and we were riding our bicycles in there. Man, I'll never forget that shit. Like it was like this moment of where you were like you left your body and you were now into another world, and it just became like a real fascination because I had access to like you see, herb was different than where it was coming in from ships right into the area. So what you would get is regional weed. So you were getting it in cyclical. So when we come through the season, so you'd see Thai once a year, you'd see Afghani once a year, you'd see Colombian for a good chunk, because there's 2 seasons in Colombia. So like, you would have herb coming through the year, and then hash would come in the winter, because that's what was coming through from the global push. And then once you got about 83, they shut the door on trafficking, and it turned it into domestic, So for those early years in the late 70s, I was getting access to kill the weed as a kid, and because my neighborhood was a crime zone, you kind of weave into that lifestyle. And I started, like Pat, I started collecting seeds from all the product I was around. And because my family was criminals, they weren't in the drug business, they were in the organized crime business. It gave me access to people in the drug business who were, I would say my era, my generation, the new era of what people did in the New England area. It let us kind of be around people that were higher level, And so I got taught to appreciate the product that was coming in because they were smart, educated, drug dealing aficionados. And so they would say, hey, this is the best Afghani from this batch. When a Colombian comes back in, usually around this time, some really incredible shit comes in. When it does, we'll call you, we'll show it to you. And that's when they had to call you at your house, because you didn't have a fucking cell phone. They got pages back then, right? We were still using the phone, pay phones and stuff. And so what it did though is it let me access really, really, really kill weed and get an education from people who were really educated traffickers. And so it let me really get caught up in like all the different types of pot, and all the different highs, and I met all the different people, and I got to see that whole world unfold, and so I started growing, but I had a round thumb. Like if some fertilizer was good, then fertilizer was better. And so I was burning the living shit out of everything I touched. So when I was like 13, 14, I'm serious, I was killing everything. I had the brown thumb in the crew, right? And so it's what really drove me to go study cultivation so heavily, because I was not a natural cultivator like my friend was. And so my friend would be the primary grower and I would help him. And so for the first couple of years, we were growing in my grandmother's backyard where she had a whole abandoned garden and everybody had gotten old and it was irrigated. And so we would just grow there. We wouldn't know even to take those first year, we didn't know to take the males out. We would like shake the males so that they make the females happy. This is no fucking bro, folks, you know what I mean? This is like 80, 81, that kind of shit, right? And so 83, I got excited that year because I had all these killer seeds and we had some property in the back that was all surrounded so you couldn't actually see it. And I had all this heavy loam base that my father had laid out for years as a depository for soils and stuff because he had a landscaping business. And so I had this ultimate garden bed that it just sat. And I seeded the whole thing. I mean, I created a fucking patch. And in 83 in New England, that might not have been the best choice. And so I was in high school in Warwick, and I was in the gym, and I was getting ready to go to lunch. And they called me down to the principal's office, and I didn't know why. So I walked in the principal's office, and they asked me to go inside his office, and I walked in there, and I got tackled by the drug task force. And they had raided my house, and they jacked me up, right? And they hauled me from high school to the police station, from the police station to the Kent County Courthouse. And then I was in the holding, went through the trial, went back to holding, made it to training school, and ate supper in the Rhode Island training school. I went from fucking lunch to supper incarceration in 83. That was like the youth system and the drug system in that day. Like, herb was heroin. You'd be like, fuck. And so, you know, it was a wild time, but it doesn't change the fact that I loved what I did, and I never broke my fascination with cannabis as a plant, and I love the way cannabis changes people. I think that it has an ability to create bridges and interaction potential that nothing else really does so simply with so little penalty to use. It's almost, it's magical in that part, truly. So, you know, I've been really lucky that I got to spend my whole life, you know, going that route. But those early years were hella fun. You know, I would get so late, I could be sleeping in the back of the car, you'd be sleeping, and you're hanging out with, you know, career criminals and shit, so they're just cracking up, because, you know, you can't handle that shit, and they're making you smoke with them. They're making you experience, you need to grab more. And you're just like, but I wouldn't trade the days, man. I wish we had that diversity today. You know, I wish what we had the ability to do was have some form of cultural identity for all the countries that traditionally produced cannabis, to where they had a global system of cannabis, to where you truly had what was grown, why, and where for a reason. And what you have is you have a radically different type of consumption of cannabis, because we'd be able to really go through these populations and find out where really do we need the best choices for ourselves, due to that relationship with the bacteria and the fucking angle of the sun. The magic that occurs in that thing or that thing can only occur there. And it's a problem that we're all facing, even like with cocaine, right? Like I know it sounds odd. if you're cocoa farmers, you go through this weird cyclical boom and bust too, because they always have to move the plantations. And so whoever's cultivating for the cartels, they grow cocoa for the cartel, but when the cycle changes, they now have no function either. And so when I was in Colombia, we were working on trying to get these old cocoa farms converted into hemp and cannabis farms, and to put them into like centralized processing and distribution potential so that the farmers can continue to farm the land the way they always have. But it would just change products on what they were producing. And it allowed them to be able to have a little smoother system of how you actually functioned as a business, and then they received higher value for their efforts and work, so it was actually a pretty equitable situation. But you know, you have to have that desire, but they go through the same thing where when the cocoa fields move, those farmers no longer have jobs on their lands. What do you do with it? You know, it's a strange time everywhere.
So you talked about hanging out with drug dealers and had to mention go to jail a couple times. It sounds like Wendy's pretty sweet and clean at this point. Have you ever been arrested or had helicopters chasing you down or anything like that?
I've never been arrested. You know, there definitely there were not as many female cultivators in Humboldt as there were males, and if there were, we usually had a guy that we cultivated with. A lot of times, you know, when they were on homesteads and things, the women were generally tending the garden, but if it got busted, the man would take the fall, because the woman had to be there to take care of the kids. Not that there aren't dads that are awesome, but, you know, generally y'all want us to take care of the kids, and yeah, we have to call the lawyers, and we're not gonna curse them out as much as you guys might, and we, you know, may be able to smooth things out a little bit. No, I never got caught, which I was really grateful for, but I never grew very big either. So like, I had a lot of friends that grew, like, some of my dear friends had the biggest bust in the time. I think they had like, what did Chris have? 15,000 plants? Chris and I don't know very much. Every now and then, by the way, you guys, I go through like miniature panics because this was such a quiet part of my life for so long that every now and then it sinks in. I'm like, oh my God, this is recorded. This is on, you know, this and that, and this gets out there. And it's not that that is something bad. I'm totally, you know, accepting of it. I have said for a really long time since this was legal in California is that I never, ever would have gone to jail for weed before. Now that they've legalized it and it is so socially acceptable and so widely used, if you want to make a martyr out of me, have at it. But it hasn't happened yet, and I really hope it doesn't ever happen. But yeah, we had friends that grew huge amounts, like thousands of plants, crawling through, you know, those blackberry bushes and those poison oak and chopping out little things. And when we talk about patches of weed, it's because it really was a patch. Like you really had to find a place and you created a little patch in something that looked kind of hidden, and you know, maybe that tree will actually like not look like a weed plant from, you know, above when the helicopters fly.
Lots of patches.
Lots of patches, because if they caught one of them, then maybe you still had two.
Diversification.
Yeah, we learned diversification early on. We learned how to, you know, grow lots of things in similar areas but in different parts. Helicopters, they still make me panic. I think actually Pat and I were filming on the farm when I flew over, and the camera's on us and we're talking, we both like kind of froze, we started doing this, we both start looking around, and you know, eventually it flies by and we're like, okay, so anyway, but yeah, I remember, you know, when my dad finally, or maybe it was my sister, I can't remember, somebody in my family found out that we had a little weed patch, and they're like, okay, so since you're gonna do this, we need to have you sit down, we're gonna tell you a few things. So number one, helicopters follow movement. So if you hear a helicopter, you need to run to the thick brush and then stop moving. Because if you keep running, they'll keep following. You're not gonna get out of it that way. You gotta stop, hunker down, wait for them to fly by and go the other direction. You know, when we had trimmers on the farm, it was always like, okay, here's the escape route. You know, you don't bring your car on. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that. Your wallet, all of your stuff with your identification goes. Should they come at us from two directions, the story is, I'm just here to work. Don't say what you're doing. Just ideally grab a hammer, grab something, go outside, and fuck around with the fence. We don't care if they catch you in the room. I'm just here to work. I don't even know who hired me. Shut the fuck up. We'll bail you out later. And these were the common paradigms that we were growing up with, that we were taught, was, you know, how to get away with it safely. And we got camped on, we got busted multiple times, but luckily we had this community that, has been talked about of, networks of people that would say, okay, there's a convoy coming down from, wherever, it's going up this road. Okay, it's past that road, now it's headed down China Creek. Okay, so now China Creek had a phone tree. The person at the bottom would call whoever knew would call somebody on there. They'd call until they got down to a person that was above the convoy. That person would go out with a chainsaw and they would cut down a tree to fall on the road so everybody else above had time to get out to their patch, cut their plants down, run them out to the woods and hide them somewhere, so when camp came and raided, they at least had something set aside. And you didn't know who they were coming for because they were coming up some damn dirt road where there was like 50 little trails that went off onto hippie homesteads everywhere. But we had the community that called you. So when camp came to my farm 2 years in a row, both years I got a call that like, dude, there are helicopters and they're definitely circling your farm. So I was like, oh, so then we would call anybody who was there and be like, get the fuck off, no, don't go that way, go this way. And yeah, like I said, there were never any arrests, but there was always moments of panic. There were always times when you're just like, so are we gonna make it through? Are we gonna make it out? How much are they gonna take? Is there anybody getting behind? I don't know.
We were like mycelium. There was like an underground network of communication that would go on. We all knew what was happening.
Clem, right? Clem, Kevin, I'm sure you remember Clem, Civil Liberties Monitoring Project. It was a renegade project that got put together by the hippies that anytime anybody heard about it, you would call Clem. You would call the neighbors first of where the convoy is headed, then you would call Clem, Civil Liberties Monitoring Project. They would call KMUD radio, and they would announce it on the radio. There's a convoy of trucks, they're headed up Oldwood Road. And so it was locally broadcasted to all of us as to where the people were heading that year.
Can you explain what the KMUD is?
KMUD is our local radio station in Humboldt County. It still exists to this day. It's locally funded. It's not, we don't have any big donors or anything. Mostly it was funded by weed money back in the day. Still is, for the most part. It's all volunteer, and it's actually, you can listen to it now on the web, which is really cool, like when they went through that process. KMUD.com, or .org, pardon me, .org. And we have like weed shows on it. We used to have a show called, Betty Etter used to do something called Homegrown Tomatoes. And it was like, so I have a problem with my tomato plant, wink, wink, and now it's like we have Ganja Tree Show, and we have, what is that name for the show? She has a Monday cannabis business show. It's just, to see this happen, I'm like, man, it's crazy.
Just follow up on that, because you said it's basically built and supported by cannabis money. Do you think farmers in the legal recreational market can give back as much as they were able to before corporate cannabis got involved?
Financially, no, but we're finding ways to give back in other ways. So, people are volunteering more again, and a lot of that's because their farm's going fallow, so they have more time on their hands. And financially, it's like a lot of people are now giving smaller amounts. I feel like there's been a turn in things. We did, this whole boom and bust thing is very relevant of what Humboldt went through and even what California went through. My parents used to say, well, this will end someday. This is going to end. Because any day now, they're going to find a way to destroy the cannabis industry. And they really still haven't. Like, it's still.
Because we're chameleons, right? I don't go away.
And that's a huge part of it. Like, we learn how to pivot. When Ben realized that he wasn't going to make the money that was going to be viable for his family, he's like, all right, what else do I have in my wheelhouse? Well, I'm really passionate about helping other people figure this out. We're here in Massachusetts, not because we're like, Massachusetts is the best state. It's because there was a call and a need, and we were like, this is not a message that California necessarily needs to hear. This is a message that all of these emerging states along this corridor really need to hear. This is stuff that we really can make an impact on, and that is that chameleon pivot. And if you speaking to the monetary thing, and also bringing in branding. Patrick says brand yourself, which I completely agree with, but also learn how to brand as a group.
That's what I mean. Share a reciprocal relationship with other fellow branders.
This was the thing when years ago when I spoke in, I think it was Michigan, and everybody was like, I have my little brand, I'm like, that's awesome. Can you guys brand together? Like, work together. You can be a family of farms that works together, you have a lot more power, and then you're not the only crazy person standing out there by yourself, because you have your 6 fellow farmers standing with you.
And you're all invested in each other.
And you're investing in each other, and you're able to invest in similar things. So instead of saying like, well, I have to buy 10,000 packages because I need that number to get this price down, but it's only me. Well, now as a group, we can buy 10,000 packages, and we can still donate to our local radio station, and we can still support our schools and our roads and, you know, our police if we want to, or our firefighters, or whatever it is that you should be sharing your wealth with that calls to your heart. It's still really important to find ways to do that. I still donate. We don't have a lot of money, but I can find 20 bucks. If you can afford a coffee or a smoothie, then, you know, maybe take a day off of that and donate $5 to something. I still give money to homeless people. You know, I buy them food more than I give them money nowadays, but, you know, and also we don't have that many homeless people. They just don't hide very well.
California ain't the best day either. Just, there you go, Ben.
Well, it's everywhere though. I mean, these situations are everywhere. It's not, you drive
I
through
think
Portland,
it's balanced
Oregon.
with the environmental, like I feel like Prop 64 came and now the fires, there's no water, so you're unable in California to actually argue the whole reality. It's not just that the corporate came and destroyed it, the environment came and destroyed it. And so now, it's so sad, like I had to
Chameleons.
move from, I know, I moved to Maine, second 64, and I've been there.
Yeah.
I love it. I've learned so much about the soil, so much, I'm obsessed.
I think that California definitely, we got more than just propositions. and
California needs a
policy.
fucking cleaning, let's be real.
It's
man.
horrific.
And you talk to people like Pat and I, we're like, you know, I'm not so mad at 64 anymore. I'm not so mad at the overtaxation, because the reality is, like, there's a lot of small farmers that are going fallow and they're very scared, and that is heartbreaking. We're watching my friends and neighbors literally turn around and say that they don't know what to do. What do I do next? I don't know what to do. It's really
Embrace change.
hard. It's embrace change, and then it's also hunker down and just give it a minute.
Yeah.
You know, okay, your donkey is dying, you should get the fuck off it, but maybe help it out and give it some water too, and just take a breather and just sit for a second. Just everybody stop for a minute. Let it settle. Because this is hitting the big farms as much as it's hitting the small ones. And sure, they have deeper pockets, but those pockets eventually run dry. And then we still have legacy, we still have knowledge, we still have our fucking passion. Those guys didn't have it, they wanted money. They're not in it, that goes away. So there is a place for it. There is still, like, I really come from a place of extreme optimism and hope. That is like, if you don't believe in this, hey, I will see you on your way out, and I will still be here.
It's so funny, I always say this, and it's like corporate cannabis comes in, right? They put their foot on our throat, they don't need us. Right? They give no respect for the pioneer we did to put fucking money in their pockets. Right? They don't need us. They don't need us, we are a useful tool, throw us back in prison, right? And then they realize that they can't do it by themselves, that they actually need brand ambassadors and real motherfuckers to actually sell their shit and brand it out. Right? They need that. So now this whole turning and divide is coming in with corporate cannabis, and there's there's like almost a seat at the table coming down the line where we need each other. I know that I'm going to brand in other states and I'm going to be fine. Are they? Like, really, are they? I mean, there's some great, there's some great brand ambassadors out there. There's some great companies, corporate companies, but for the most part, they're just very few. And they spend a lot of money, and they raise another money. That's the other thing. Is they raise this capital. And this capital is raised off these investors that are like, cannabis, let's invest in cannabis. Everybody in this room give me $10,000, I'm going to give you $100,000 back in a year.
Oh, I was just
but the year comes and I'll be like, fuck, I'm almost over the bridge. Can you give me another 10,000? I'll give you another. And people just keep throwing this money out, throwing this money out, throwing this money out. Valuations are crazy, but they aren't reality. Right? It's just not the reality. There's only some brands out there, cookies and water, right, that was able to really just take it and run with it. So, in the corporate level, there's not very many of them. There's a lot of corporate. And I can go into corporate. I can go on. But actually, Kevin talked about this. Your experience.
you know, there's two things that I don't think that people really see when they look at a new industry. And the one that helped me understand better was when I was having a conversation with the head of taxation in California, and we were talking about what is success from the view of them. What is a success from the governor's point of view? When you build a new industry, how does one create a new industry? And what I learned is that when you create a new industry from a state level, you create it from tax revenue desire. So you take a look and you do your research and your committee figures out what's the potential tax revenue. And from that point forward, everything is about achieving that tax revenue, because that is how success for the state is deemed. And that's what works for their benefit. Otherwise, why would they go through the trouble of allowing a new industry to occur? If there's not enough benefit to the state, then they actually can discourage new industries because there's not enough take. But if there's enough take, it means that it's good. And so Fiona explained to me that we had $1 billion goal, and until we reached $1 billion, we were going to have a blowback saying that we were failing in our rollout. But she knew that it was going to be a bloodbath, because the bottom line is you couldn't have a quasi-system if you were trying to enact a new system. And so they rolled this system out, and they knew it was going to be a disaster, because it's the train wreck that occurs every time a new industry is emerging. And when they had the COVID bump, and it gave them that billion dollar pull 2 years in a row, it completely validated the success of the industry to every single person who quantifies success. So the taxpayer can scream. The bottom line is they get $1 billion income coming in that they can divert and move as they choose into their internal slush fund that was gained from taxation. And so from a point of view that we usually don't see is from their point of view, the system's a total success. The system is not a total failure. The system is a total success. Their goal was $1 billion a year in the pocket, and they achieved it multiple years in a row. So it's kind of convinced them that they should give back some of this money when they're making it. And so they don't care who pays it. So they don't care who it comes from. They just know, because they don't care who it comes from in any industry. They don't protect anybody in any facet of American culture. No matter what you do in America, you get gobbled up by somebody bigger. And that leads us into the next part, is that the people that you're fucking around with right now aren't that big. So like, I had involvement in Giants, but I'm telling you, I had a conversation with one of the lead scientists from Syngenta at this conference where he knew who I was, because he's a gene freak. And so he's one of their lead seed breeders of one of the largest seed companies in the fucking world. And he meets me at a conference, and we started geeking out on weed. And it was really kind of interesting. And I asked him, I said, you know, just as a conversation between you and I, you know, are you diving into cannabis? And he goes, no, global food is where we play right now. And he said, when we get into cannabis, you'll know we're here. And it made me realize that the truth is that it's federal legalization that opens up these doors, because none of these global multinationals can risk asset forfeiture for playing. So what that means is that the people you're playing with right now are positioning themselves for acquisition by the final owner. So we're only in the second stage. We were stage 1, the original operators. Then stage 2 comes the transition, and stage 3 is the final solution, right? And that's how your development of an industry occurs. And I think that, you know, for a lot of the people, what you have an ability to do is, if you can figure out a way to add value to businesses that were going to emerge, and get yourself in a situation to where you could benefit from that emergence, it would allow you then to create the liquidity you need to be able to operate your own facility, to where your cannabis world, your farming world goes back to what it was, which was more like a passion project, something that you were into, that you could do and get satisfaction from and earn some modicum of exchange for it, but you were making money enough from your other shit so that you weren't having to depend on fluctuations of any agricultural product. Because I don't know any farmer in any field who's happy with the situation. In every country I go to, every farmer I meet is fucked. It's a universal curse. It's not just us. And so the way I think that, you know, we move forward with a lot of this is if you develop in skills and you have an edge, your brand is great because it lets people remember who you are, but it also helps if they remember that you're fucking smart. So like, do your homework and figure out what it is that you want to be good at, and get your hands around that shit so that when you're in a room with other people that are bright, you can fucking hold on to the topic, so that what you can really do is add value to their situation. And when you can work with companies that need polish, they need development, they need insight, it's not just they need your fucking back, they need you to help them understand how do you move through these problems intelligently, how do you use the skills you've developed in your life. Those things are your real asset right now, more than your ability to grow work. Because your ability to grow work is going to get your wage. But your ability to influence the success of these larger companies will get you something called equity. And that you have an ability to grab onto pieces that are substantial if you know how to bring value to what you do. And then what it'll do too is it'll bring you into the limelight to steer attention to your brand when things are a little bit better. It's not done. Our world, the small farmers world isn't done. It's just that you gotta go through some fucking painful transitions until this shit stabilizes. And nobody can financially handle it. So a lot of these bigger companies are gonna get knocked out, but the ones that are in position right now to not be knocked out are not going to get knocked out. You have yourself some monsters that are absolutely ready to move. So they're gonna fill the coffers. It's just that what we need to have happen is the awareness made about all the other facets around what we do. It's the cultural connections. If you can take booze and make NASCAR, right? Because NASCAR, that whole thing is based off of bootlegging, right? If you can create an entire bootlegging subculture, then you can do the same with cannabis, because our culture is just as fucking wild and every bit as interesting. And so the thing is it's trying to really, steer attention in other ways, but for operators, like whoever's in the room right now, if you're farmers and you learn your craft and you learn new skills, make sure you fucking get on it. Because there's a lot of people, like in the day, we had a head start, because really all I needed to do was be a little bit smarter than the cops and industrious. Right? So if I could be a little smarter than the cops and I could move in, because I was running indoor all those years. From 89 all the way into the 2000s, I was indoor all over. Like I was sparking things up and down the street. So we were hiding, not doing outdoor at all, except some plants in the yard just so that we would have some outdoor. And I had friends that were down south that would do outdoor operations, but I ran indoor all over North Humboldt. So I stayed out of that outdoor experience when it was just too fucking risky, because otherwise you had no stability on the money. So same thing, you transition, and I realized down the road that, where I wanted was to only really grow outdoor only, and I wanted to finish my career in that form. And I learned that, the first living soil bed I ever saw was probably and it was in Humboldt too, but it was an indoor in McKinleyville. And he's the one that really turned me on to living beds, produce better flavor profiles, period. And I would buy weed from him, and I was growing a fucking truckload of it, but I was buying weed from some old hippie, and he had a living soil indoor bed in his house, and I was buying some, what did he have? He had a White Widow and the original blueberry. And I was paying full price. I was paying $4.15 an ounce for that shit in the early 90s. And I was growing so much weed, but I was buying it from him for my head because the flavor was so developed. And so I knew where the quality was living soil. And then when I started really seeing living soil and sun combined, I knew that to me was where I wanted to end my career. So that's where I steered through. But you have to make transitions if you're in the game. If you just because you fucking want to be something, that doesn't really matter. I'm glad, I'm glad that you want to be somebody. So does everybody else around you. Everybody must be fucking happy. It's not a novel idea. What's novel is moving your goddamn feet and trying to be as creative as possible and in the way that you can see. And so what I'm saying is that for you all in the spaces, every emerging business around you, all the cannabis world around you, they're all development hotspots. They're places that are teeming with interest and they're teeming with investment money. And this is happening globally. So you have an ability to have a radically different situation where right now, just feel like in the computer industry where it's exploding, you have to be an engineer, you have to be fucking graphics. You had skills for something that was needed right now. And the ability to do that is just, it's smart. Because what it'll do is it'll allow you to be able to get higher level perspective of the industry you're in while you're developing your fine skills in your craft, whatever be you choose.
Sorry, there was like a reverberation from the speaker thing. So we're like, where is that coming from? He was like, just go push the button down. Kind of like, no.
So
Don't make it
they're
such a-
technically incompetent, so.
Hey, no, I mean, just challenge.
All right, so moving back to Patrick, that you mentioned a bunch of times being arrested and spending time in jail. Can you walk us through what that was and what that was like and where that brought you to?
I always go back, and I tell myself right now that this is not me telling this is the 12-year-old telling this. Sat down because he's proud. And yeah, when I got arrested when I was 12, I was taken to juvenile hall, and I was released 2 months after, and nobody came to pick me up. Nobody picked me up. I was becoming a ward of the state, and they were going to sign off me as a ward of the state. And I mean, this is stuff. Fuck, man. This is me. And I was so depressed because nobody loved me enough to pick me up. I tried to commit suicide, and I went to I never told you this shit. And I went to psych ward and had to go through all this and got out. And I didn't want to kill myself. I just wanted someone to love me. So this is all the 12-year-old boy learning about himself. So, then I got home around that time frame, and I looked in my house, and the door was locked. There was no furniture, and I went to my bedroom, looked in the window, and there's nothing there. And I had a need. So, it's hard for me to say this because I love my mom, she's not here, my father's passed. So I don't knock my mom. My mom was a product of her environment, and she was great. And I got a lot of great skill set from my mom. Probably the one thing I got from my mom is how to learn stuff, right? And so it isn't a bad parenting situation. It was a skill set that I took with me, and now I'm a great parent because of it, I'll tell you that. But my life was a wrecking ball, and I was homeless as a kid, off and on. I lived under houses. I waited till the house went. I lived under this one house. I always remember, and it was kind of on a slope, so it had a bigger crawl space. So I'd wait till the lights would go out, and I would sneak around the back of the house and go. And there's a little door into the foundation that I had a rug that I took from the construction site, and there was a outlet, so I plugged in a lamp, and it was warm. And it wasn't a thing back then. It was what I did. I even went to school at that time and showed up to fucking school. And I never graduated 9th grade. I'm surprised I graduated 8th grade. But I stayed in high school selling fucking doobies. And I worked at a construction site and made money. So at that point in my life, this is nothing. That's why I say my experience has made who I am today, and I'm so fucking grateful because of my experiences, right? I learned at a young age that if you're going to depend on somebody, depend on your fucking self and the people that I have. And so, I've spent like just under 7 years behind bars all of my life. I'm 52 years old now. I know a lot of people that spent a lot more time. But the hustle was real. I've always had a job. I've always worked, and I've always sold drugs. Right? And when I was younger, I always had a patch. And I sold cocaine. And I sold fucking other drugs as well too. And it was a thing for me because I knew that if I was a heavy consumer of my products, that you know, it would become a problem, and I would be like all the rest of the people that are trying to sell drugs. That wasn't my life. I had a hustle, you know, and I worked. And that's what I did. So, yeah, this is fuck, man. This is shit I don't ever talk about. This is the ties that binds me together. And, you know, I remember as a teenager going to juvenile hall, I would think to myself, man, I want to be cool like that guy. I can't wait till I get to county jail. I would actually think that shit. Then when I became an adult and was going to county jail, I'm like, this fucking place sucks. I can't wait to go to prison. These are the things that went through my head, right? And you know, prison, same way, I went to prison on a number of different charges. Somebody ratted on me, and I think that person, I think he's alive right now because of that on me. Not by my doing, but anyways, that's a whole other fucking story. You know, when I was in San Quentin, I realized that, you know, I seen all these people in this revolving door. And these guys would go out and they'd come back in and they'd have these great stories that I look at them and go, motherfucker, you're homeless. And look at you all sucked up. Like, you couldn't wait to get back here. And my experience with that is immediately, I'm like, that ain't me. This ain't me. And so she was bringing up the story earlier. I think you're trying to pull out the man. It was the tear of life, I call it. And I don't think I've ever told many people this, but you know,
You don't have to share it.
no, I mean, I'm going to go through it real quick. It was the biggest learning experience in my life. And, oh my God, like, this is for real. It's going to come out. Okay, this might take a second. We got time? Okay, so I was in San Quentin. Long story short, this big guy, who was a lot bigger than me, was bragging. He was 40, 41, bragging about he's going to get out and marry a 17-year-old girl that's been with since she was 13. And that just didn't fly with me, right? It just didn't fly with me. So I beat the fucking shit out of him, right? I'm not the biggest guy. I've lost half my fucking fights in my life. I'm not bragging like I'm a tough guy because I'll swing, but you know, I'll get knocked out. And so, long story short, and I'm not promoting fighting, I'm not promoting this. If you want to beat up somebody that, you know, manhandles a child, then, you know, I'm going to high five you. And so, anyways, as I won the fight, he gave me one hit in the temple, and I was losing my equilibrium. Actually hit me in the fucking temple, and at the same time, a guard came and attacked me. And so when I was trying to get up, and the guards were trying to get me up, I had no equilibrium. I actually got hit in the temple and lost my equilibrium for 3 fucking days. And so they thought I was resisting arrest, and I got billy clubbed to fucking death for, you know, because they thought I was falling and not pulling away, but, you know, obviously I couldn't catch my balance. Long story, here we go. Went through all this, ended up in AgSeg, in the hole, and this motherfucker that I just beat up, he ended up in there, and I was losing my mind. So they took me and they put me in death row to teach me a lesson because I was a fucking punk that tried to resist arrest, which wasn't even and so naked, and I was there for weeks, right? And it was crazy because that changed my life because I really had a soul search of who I was. I went to eating the food because I knew the stories, the feces and the shit for guys like me, right? And I there was, you know, I'd hear at night, I had to fall asleep, these crazy fuckers that would take their cup and hit it against the bars, and they're just like scratching a chalkboard non-stop. A lot of processing going on in my head, and there was this one guy who kept telling me, does anybody listen to me? How about you listen to me? Finally, I'm like, I'm listening. What do you got to say one day? When we started a relationship with the older guy, he said, I've been here for 26 fucking years, and they won't kill me. Every year I'm supposed to die, and they won't kill me. I was a punk kid just like you, and I worked my way up to another tier, right? And now you're on the last tier of life. You just elevated up to the top. He goes, you want to be here 26 fucking years? Keep your lifestyle. Keep doing your lifestyle. Keep being who you are. I'm already processing, this wasn't who I was, and this cool mentality really wasn't like group, but I was trying to create an image growing up that, friends' parents didn't fucking like me. My parents fucking told me I was a loser and never gonna amount to anything. The fucking jurisdiction, my teachers told me I was the least likely to succeed. I'm reminding them right now, I've out-succeeded all my classmates, okay? So all this stuff you tell yourself, you're not learning, and so I knew there had to be a better way, and he was right. I'm going on this journey that is on the wrong path. And oh man, fucking heart's heavy right now. And sorry. And now I made the decision. If I'm going to do criminal activity, I'm going to fucking learn how to do it right. Right? And I'm going to do it for a right cause. And I'm going to do it because it's a belief and a value in me. And I'm not going to go back to the same lifestyle I was. I'm going to completely redevelop myself. And, I came out of, when I paroled and got out of prison, they all told me, hey, we'll see you in 6 months, out the gate by 8, in the spoon by noon, back to the 10 by 10 mentality. That's what the revolving door was. And I'm like, I'm not fucking here, okay? I'm not going to do this, right? I mean, clubs were wanting me to go in as a member, right? All this shit going, right? All these, anyways, I paroled and I told myself, and there's a whole other long story of recovery and cannabis and recovery. I'm an alcoholic, right? I'm a drug addict. I understand this. I hone my craft. I'm not addicted to cannabis, but cannabis to me is addictive if you use it like that. That's a whole other story we can talk about. It goes deep, but with me, I knew that I was in trouble and my lifestyle had to change, and that this 12-year-old boy can do any fucking thing he wanted because he's already proved it at this time. And so I came out, and I've always had a job, and I've always worked in construction, and I was a teenager, and I was, labor foreman for all the labor. I knew how to manage shit too. And so I ended up becoming a builder developer right out of it. I said, I'm not going to do any drugs. I'm not going to cultivate. I'm going to start a new career. And I did that for 2 years. I've built 67 homes in Cloverdale. I've worked on Santa Cruz County building and developing from raw land. And I was hustling and slinging fucking lots just like I was fucking pounds, man. It was crazy. And in that 08 crash, I was still cultivating and I was still doing things during that time. I'm a big agriculture guy, so I always grow everything. Like I said, there's no segregation in agriculture. I grow shit, and I love it. It doesn't matter what I'm touching, what plant I'm jacking off. It doesn't fucking matter. It's my passion, it's my life, it's my tribe, it's my life. It's all of it. And so the 08 crash really started happening again, and people were saying, fuck, this is fucking trees. And that's where the coin came in. Redwood trees with vine riders came about because I was growing these giant plants. I was going soil in 2006 because I was, developing my own shit. I got tired of other people selling contaminated products. And these grows are like, look at my plants. I'm like, fuck, you looking at your plants? I'm looking at something totally different over here. Right? And so I went completely 10 years without any drug or any alcohol or anything. I'm fearless. I'm still fearless. I'm still fearless. And so but I still cultivated and I still did that on the outside as I was going into this real world business and I was voted top 10 or top 20 in Sonoma County to under 30 to succeed. And I hit that list like number 3. And I think I was 38 at the time, right? And I was fucking I had the street knowledge, the fucking gangster knowledge, and the fucking real world knowledge, all of it. And I was sitting at tables with people thinking, I could outplay you left and right, okay? You know what I mean? So, man, cannabis is my everything, and all agriculture is. But here's how cannabis works for me. And cannabis, I didn't smoke weed today. I haven't smoked weed today. Because in me, I'm this corrupted, entrepreneurial brain that is fucking on fire constantly with these $1 million ideas that I can do, right? I got skill set that, I look at my classmates that grew up with me at the same time who said I was least likely to succeed. There's fucking no sense in anybody being bald, but I say, you know, you hate your life, you hate your wife, your fucking kids hate you, and you're fucking in the cubicle every day. If that's what your college got you, this is what my natural lifestyle got me, right? This is where I am. So I look at you, and they're all like, dude, this is great. Look at you. You're so successful. I'm like, fuck you. You know what I mean? But, so I smoke cannabis to shut this off. Like I'll go, when I leave here, I'm going to the Mendocino coast. I'm picking up my girl. She's flying in to meet me, and we're going to take 2 days off. Right when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to smoke a weed. Because I've learned to control this with cannabis, okay? If I let this motherfucker go wild, I won't be spending quality time with her. We won't be walking on the beach. I'll be thinking of everything else and opportunities and how do I save the fucking world. It just doesn't stop. Or I could smoke some cannabis and shut this thing off and enjoy the moment and the time together. And so what I've learned to do with my craft in cannabis is use it as a medicinal product for me. That's why I love smoking Sun-Grown and I love smoking doobies, because that entourage effect of the decarving of the heat going down the joint, it fires off the terpenes at a different, you get the whole different effect all the way into the joint. So I mean, it's meaningful for me. So I'll go home, as soon as I get done here, I'll be smoking some of your weed and I'm going to shut down, right? And that's what I do. But going back to, you know, addiction and fear, this all plays a part of this whole thing. I can't go out and smoke. I can't go out and take some shots of tequila. I'll be the life of the party, but the party's gonna last 3 days. I'm gonna have a headache and say, fuck, who got me on film to do this? I was dancing naked on a bar? That's the kind of shit, right? So I don't like that part of me, so I have to be very careful. What I do, sweet cannabis is my drug, it's my love, it's my tool. So is eating organic tomatoes that I grow in really good, wholesome, living soil. Right? All that shit feeds my soul. So is that answer any of what that is? I never talk about this shit. I don't even talk about the details. That's who I am. So this is me when I got out of the real world and construction and building and developing, which I was very successful at. I realized that I had no passion. People were applauding me for building a spec home and selling it for so much money because how much money I got out of that person, right? How much greed I got out of here. Loan brokers were like, this guy's on fire. He just built 40 houses. They're like, it's like, and so that wasn't my vibe. That wasn't my tribe. And what I realized, especially helped with the downturn, is that I'm fucking soil king, man. Yeah. Right? I'm fucking soil king, and I'm here right now. And I'm real as real can fucking be. And I am humble and I make fucking mistakes. And my mission statement is changing the world one plant at a time. And I can't fucking do it alone. I'm a grandstand of that. You all are part of it. You all are part of the process, right? So call me out when I'm wrong. Let's have a clean diet. But no one's gonna stop me because I'm a fucking
Because you're obviously a felon. And
but boom, bang, bang. Lots of felonies.
And you somehow were growing, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were growing cannabis legally at some point. How did that happen?
Growing cannabis legally, this is a good one. So as an entrepreneur, I say pioneering, right? Outlaw the pioneer. God, you have time for this? Outlaw the pioneers. So Kevin knows about a lot of this. Wendy does too. We're all doing different areas. I was Sonoma County, he was Humboldt, Tim Blake was Mendocino County. We were hustling, trying to get legalization up and running, right? So I was a felon and I knew I couldn't be a licensed. But first off, in 2014, God, there's just not enough fucking time for this story. So I built a bridge with law enforcement. I had a chief of police in the town I lived in, came to me. I had arrested in 2012, 2014, I think, for cannabis. And I was on the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club. I was a Lions Club member. I was a softball coach, and baseball coach for 9 years. And I was building houses for all these people, and I was just this fake figment is this reality, right? But I was real. And so they came, I got arrested, and my whole town kind of imploded on me. I was, cannabis? Fucking devil's lettuce, right? So I said, I don't give a fuck what you guys think. I'm still gonna do this, because that's my goal, that's my passion. So I had to break those binds, and I had to educate, and right at that time, I had a garden, the Soil King Garden Center, and I had a lady come in. And I didn't have chemicals, and everybody had bombs for their indoor rooms, right? They all were bombing their indoor rooms. So she comes in and she got pissed off at me, and she says, how come you don't carry this shit in your store? We have to drive all the way down for our chemicals and for our pesticide products. And I'm like, and everybody told me I was stupid because I'm in business to stay in business. Why wouldn't I sell shit that's what people want to buy? And I couldn't. I said, hypothetically, I'm looking at them, hypothetically, somebody buys a home, they have a 3-bedroom house, they have a newborn baby, they have one room they're growing in, they have one room the baby's in, and then the husband and wife's in another room, and it's cold outside, they turn the heater on, they position the crib right underneath the heater vent, and next thing you know, you got your cultivation, you clean your room, you put your bomb in there. I'm like, where do you think that fucking bomb goes? I'm like, that person's probably killing their baby and not aware of it. Right? And so she dropped on the ground and she started crying. She said, you're fucking telling my story. And at that time, the chief of police heard about this. Same thing, this in the town I lived in. And so he came to me after I'd been arrested and he said, how the fuck do you do what you do, no matter what? You're already success at these other careers. Why do you want to? And I said, because I was put on this planet for a reason. Right? I don't know what that is, but I know what's in front of me with the direction I'm going. And I have things to fucking do, right? I have decisions to make, things to change. And I talked to him about that. I said, you, law enforcement, you have, not only is she is killing her baby and not knowing it, you put them in that fucking house by the threat of ripping away her fucking baby and taking the baby and calling her a bad fucking mother. And you got the husband being an electrician with faulty electrical all over this. Not only that, he's going to burn the fucking house down and the neighbors, all because you drove them in that fucking situation because of you. So quit kicking in fucking doors, quit counting numbers of fucking plants, and start looking at the real value of health and harm. And he stood up from the table, or at a picnic table, and reached across and he put his hand up and said, how do we do this together? And him and I wrote the fucking first ordinance in the world that said no chemical cultivation and harmful chemicals used inside the city limits of Fort Lauderdale, California. And we put that ordinance out there, and it was the most proudest moment. And when the cops would get called on a house because I was selling everybody soils and different things, they called me, the cops are out here. And all their sergeants and cops would fucking hate me because I would show up to the scene and say, Chief Kramer, we got a fucking problem here, call your boys off. Next thing you know, they all be convinced that they would fucking leave. And we'd have a conversation about, I'd walk in the house and say, look, man, is that really your electrical? Like, let's talk about it. Who gives a fuck? You're only supposed to have, I think it was 30 plants at the time, and you got fucking 600. Why shouldn't you give a fuck about that? Let's go to the real thing. So that was the start of building bridges in law enforcement. And with that, it goes on. There's a bunch of other shit that happened down the road with the Sonoma County Sheriff. He's in one of my documentaries that's coming out on network TV. But with that, we started educating law enforcement on the real reasons. And so Chief Kramer passed away now from cancer. And his family probably doesn't want to say this, but he definitely would. Yeah, I supplied him with fucking cannabis. Right? I supplied him with cannabis. I helped him through his last days. Right? I was part of his arsenal of success. And we had a bond of friendship that went past law enforcement, we went past civilian, right? We did some shit together, and that's pioneering. And you know how many people fucking called me out for having this discussion with law enforcement? Oh, you fucking turd, you're turning on us? Fuck you, no. I am future, I'm ahead of you by years right now, putting money in your pockets you don't even fucking see. Right? I am cleaning up. That child is more important to me than that motherfucker that was calling here. Right? And that's fucking pioneering. And that was just the start of something great. And it goes on and on and on from there.
In that light, we're working with people reaching across the aisle, so to speak, to use a shitty political analogy. How do you guys feel, Kevin, how do you feel about working with the big guys? Do we shun them, or do we
You
try
have
to
to,
bring them?
it's simple. Kevin's probably got a lot to say. He has more than I say, but I'm saying everything now. But it's simple for me. Look me in the eye, thank me for the work I've done, and own and give me respect for pioneering the path for you to prosper. When you do that, we can share a table and we can break some bread.
I've
If
actually.
you don't, get the fuck out of the room and I'm gonna throw a punch you on the way out.
I was gonna say, like, I've been, you know, the same thing you went through with the sheriff, I've gone through lately in my local community. Because I agreed to work with a corporate cannabis company in Canada. And they're looking to get into the United States. And they were like, we have some grows and we're gonna convert them to living soil and we want you to come teach us about cannabis. We want you to advise on these farms and help us make this a better system. And my community heard I was working with this company, and I got phone calls, and I got texts, and I got Instagram messages, and people like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, what am I doing what? You know, like, did you see these people's website? Did you see the predatory nature of their verbiage? Are you paying any attention at all? And I was like, I am actually, and I've talked with the people, would you like their phone number? I can connect you with them, and you can talk with them themselves, and decide for yourself, rather than a bad website, what's really going on. And the reality is, you know, I'm watching my small farmers fail. I'm watching people leave their homesteads. I'm watching people move to other states. I'm watching Massachusetts. How many people this weekend have said, I want to go to Maine because their policy is better? Okay, these are real situations. That I was like, if somebody came in and said, hey, what if I can make your homestead in Massachusetts a better place? I can figure out a way to make this work where you keep your land, you keep the majority of your money, you keep all of these things, but maybe you sell out or cash in with a large-scale company. I don't see any harm in that. Now, maybe I'm being naive, but the reality is that's happening. When Kevin is talking mergers and acquisitions, the big boys, these are not big boys I'm even playing with. These are small fish that want to see how that they can get into regenerative agriculture, and to me, that's huge. When Monsanto said we want to have an organic arm, I was, yes! Monsanto, the devil of agriculture, sees value in organics, and they want to cash in on that. This is not necessarily a bad thing. If we can help
Long
make
as
it
they don't sit at
better.
our table.
Well, you know, I'll sit at the table with them, that's my thing. Like, I honestly, I don't care. I
They can
don't
drink,
care.
as long as they drink the glyphosate, they told me that it was
Yeah.
fucking healthy to drink.
As
If your
long as
science,
they-
bot science said that, drink it in front of me, we'll sit at the table.
As long as they'll admit that they did wrong, and they want to do better,
I
and
mean,
they
that's always
do
been it.
better, that is better for everybody.
Yeah, it's true.
So we can rail against it, and we can curse them and tell them they're not welcome here, and they're gonna be here anyway. So if they ask me for help, how do I do this better? We're gonna buy the farms, it's happening, we're buying farms, but we wanna make them better. Will you help us make them better? My answer is yes, I will.
It's adding
I'll do
value
it.
and clean runoff to Mother Nature and doing something positive in that light. And, you know,
My mission is bigger than saving the farm. My mission is saving the world. I have 5 kids now. Those 5 children, I want them to be my age and be able to breathe air. I want them to be able to drink water. I understand that we have indoor, and while I used to hate it, I know, I'm like, thank God. Because the more technologically advanced we get and the more efficient we get indoor, the better likelihood there is that when we do fuck this world up beyond repair, if we continue to go down the paths we're going, well, at least we can all go underground and we'll have light. I don't like that idea though. So if I can make little changes to big companies to push us towards my children being able to be outside, I'm gonna do it without a doubt. And I don't care who comes at me, and I don't care what they have to say.
Kevin, same to you. And then we'll do our final question.
What was the core question?
Playing with big companies, with big money.
Yeah, do we work with big guys or do we shun them?
You can't shun someone bigger than you. I mean, shunning is a position of fucking power, right? Like, you have to kind of understand where you're standing in real life. And so the bottom line is it really comes down to like, what are you seeking as an individual? And people have to be clear in their own mind what they want. And then the idea is now, do you have any value that you could really transfer? Can you sell some of your value? And for a lot of people, they're pissed off with big groups because they don't really have any fucking value to sell. And that's really the truth. The story's great. Everybody's got one. There's 8 billion of us. There's 8 billion stories on the planet. So it comes down to like, what are you really bringing? And the ability for you to get into small companies and help them grow big is where you need to make your play. Working with giant companies is difficult unless you already have huge traction. So, and it's odd, but like when you work with like, international global groups, a lot of it is really, they're trying to figure out how do you make operations work since they've had the time to see how so many have failed. And it always comes down to some really similar models where it's either you control all the infrastructure and it's glass house operations, where it's, you're heavily invested in technology and massive scope, or you are working in outside the U.S. and regions where you have historical cultivators that are getting brought into work as partners. And so your major groups, they still require expertise. And if you have a skill set that is beneficial to them, then I don't see why you wouldn't. Because the truth of it is that the ability to see the highest level of the game is rare. And so everybody thinks they knows what it looks like until they're actually in the room. And then you realize, whoa, it'll recalibrate your process of thought. You'll really understand what you're facing and what is science at the most highest level. So when you get in your buddy's lab, that's great. Get into a lab of a multinational. And you start to understand really what's going on around you in the world of cannabis. And we provide the link into understanding, how do we get the experience from the methodologies we use, and how do we come to this conclusion, and how do we steer that? That's experience. But you can't fully, you can take all the microclone courses you want online. It's still not the same as what you're going to have to compete against. And so what it comes down to is big companies allow you to have access to a world you can't have yourself. And as long as you understand your value and you make sure you're clear with your contracts, it's just business. But the reality of it is that for most people, if they don't make the relationships to be able to work in some fashion, they're kind of limited to what their farm delivers. So I'm working in multiple continents, not just multiple states or locations. I went global, but I had to go global because I'm watching this train wreck occur around me, and I realized that if I spent 7 seconds dwelling on this shit, it was going to change my ability to have mental plasticity. That the reason why I move so fast through problems is that I don't look at them. I don't get blinded by the problem. That's my primary skill, is that I have the ability to work through pressure. And I realized that when I got into this situation and I started to really assess it, I said, there is no way out of this. We're fucked for a while. So I just said, I'm just going to put the project on the shelf. I own it. So am I still a farmer? Sure I am. Because I own the farm. It's my farm. I'm just not farming on that farm. So I can farm at other people's farms, and I'm still farming. But my own farm is they can give us, like this year, they cut us, 10 grand off the excise. So say you had certain cannabis size, they give you some money back. Well, that means that instead of being 80,000 in debt, you're only 70,000 in debt.
Right.
So it doesn't change the fucking fact that you're not making any loot. In the next 2-3 years in California, you're going to see prices get down to $1.50. You're going to see prices that you couldn't believe are possible because the scale and economy of scale that's coming into play is insane. And so for the West Coast farmers, we take the beating first because you're getting the shot at the largest group, a heritage group. But for all the areas throughout the United States that are developing their emerging markets, they need to really take a look at us and realize that no matter what fantasy land you're living in about how a small farmer is going to fight this out, you got to realize that they're not going to keep out any of these bigger companies. And your situation is to figure out how you make relationships with them that are good for you and them, because you need to benefit from it too. So the bottom line,
Recording in progress.
you can make
That's the best.
you make the relationships you need. I'm telling you, I'll be serious about this one. You're gonna see the wave of people that come in after this group are not gonna want to talk to you. They're not gonna need to talk to you. And so it's the ones that are here right now that look like they're the villain, but they're not the villain. That's the problem, is they're not the villain. It's just they're all from an educational process globally that says consumerism and capitalism is what we do. And so when you've educated half the population of the earth that is how it works, you can't be angry at them for not understanding that there's options. And cannabis over time changes people, so it's not really us that change anybody. We just try to serve the product in a manner that allows people to be introduced to her in a way that she can do her magic. So cannabis operates all on her own, you know, and that's real. And that's really the only thing we have going for us. If it was any other industry, we'd be just out of here. But the relationship with the plant really does allow you to interpret something interesting. The scientific groups, production groups, marketing groups, branding groups, anywhere around the world needs polish, because most of they've seen so much failure. And so, you know, for me, if you can make the relationship work for both of you, it's positive. And what happens is once you get into a larger company and you're successfully creating value for them, they allow you to do some interesting things. They allow you to have access to their media. They allow you to have access to their product development. They allow you to have access to their program development. So all of a sudden you can start to really utilize the power of these larger companies to do things that smaller companies just can't afford to do that are socially conscious and socially positive. And there's no other way around it. You can't really give any charity when you're broke. So broke people can give support by saying, hey, I love you and I'll hold you, but that's fucking as far as it goes. There's not much else you can do. And so you kind of find that being able to harness, you know, your ethos and utilize the financial end of bigger groups allows you to make good decisions for them that allow them to have a different longevity. And so as long as your decisions work and they benefit from the decisions that you guide them on, and they grow larger and do better because of you, that's a pretty good relationship. And so, you know, I mean, in a nutshell, yeah, do business with big people as long as you know how to fucking write a contract.
Or get a team of lawyers who do.
The lawyer do the contract. They're always gonna cut a contract, and most of the time, and the good truth too here is that people kind of don't know how to negotiate. And what you really want to be able to do is you want to be able to have them understand that you're smarter than the replacement. That that they're bringing you in for something, and you're able to clearly answer the question they're asking. And it allows them then to be able to go, okay, you're the person we're seeking. And when it comes to the negotiation, you allow them to set the terms, because usually a larger company is approaching you. So, you know, littler companies, you meet them and you work together. Once you get noticed, you'll get noticed by bigger fish. Bigger fish approach you differently. And when they lay out the course of action, it's usually a better package than you would have negotiated, because they're smart enough to understand that having you, would someone tell me, it's better for us to pay you to not fucking fight us than it is to not pay you. And so what happens is the groups will pay you just so you won't go and compete against them. And that's not a bad thing to have happen. And so like that's kind of, you know, you gotta play your hand the way it's dealt. And everybody has different skill sets, but a lot of the times, you know, with the new industry emerging, you have to understand that some of the skill sets that you acquired prior to being a farmer, they might be the ones that are valuable right now. And those are the ones that get you in the room. And then the farming ability, the farming passion is where you make the connections and you're able to start sharing, like, you know, agricultural commonalities. It allows you to, you know, find different facets of the person and make the connections with. Companies need the influence. There's been so many failures that really people are more hesitant to move quickly, and they're willing to listen in a little different way than they were prior. So our impact is definitely not to be dismissed. It's just that, you know, the world we're in changed, that it's just what it is. And when I talk to people, the people help me understand that most were people from Texas in 1980 when they said, when the oil dried up. And all they talked about was how overnight all the money went away. And how if money ever came back, this is how they were going to live. And it was the funniest thing you ever saw, man. This Texan was dancing around. He was telling me about when the oil was flowing. And he was old with these fucking big old cowboy boots on and a big Stetson hat shit. And he was dancing in the house, celebrating. He was reminiscing the days of Texas oil. And then the Saudis opened up the tap and plugged that right out and back. And that's just the way it is, you know. So I'm talking to him, and then I talked to a dude who was from Detroit. And so he was in the auto industry, and he was sitting there, and he was like, "You talking to me about societal collapse and change your reality?" And so we're in the same group. It's really anybody who works on something with their hands. If you touch it with your hands, if it's a tangible product, it's no longer an industry in America.
So we're gonna wrap up with our final question. We'll do you first.
What's the question?
What can everyone here do? What do you think is something that they can do to go out and help small farmers stay alive and keep craft and legacy knowledge and cannabis going?
Well, you know what you gotta do is, there's, how many people in the room?
We lost a bunch of them. I guess we aren't that badass as we think.
30, something like
The
that.
real ones are left.
There's 30 of you, right? And so what you want to be able to do is, you know, the people in the room, you can look around and start to recognize who in the room would they be willing to deal with outside this room. And so what happens now is you're building an active network from this base. So this space becomes the catalyst to create the relationships. And those relationships now allow these people to be able to say, hey, we have some common values and we can start to work together in any capacity, right? It doesn't make a difference what it is. It's just you're making an agreement that we all seem to be smart enough to recognize we will probably do some smart shit together. And so that's that first step. Like, look around and get the connection. And then from the connection, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to start, you're either trying to drive awareness through your any kind of marketing, and you're also starting to drive actual consumption by choosing to buy things locally in every facet of what you do. You can't just say, I'm going to support this group and fuck every other group. Like, I'm supporting small farmers, but on Amazon and everybody else. It doesn't really work, right? It's going to be a unified effort. And so, you know, what you want to be able to do is start, and what you'll notice too is you'll go to the little tiny stores that are in your area and you'll shop with them and you'll have relationships with them and you'll realize that you're going to pay $1 more than Amazon, but you also realize it's nice to walk next door and buy that from that store. And the convenience of it in real life makes it worth it, and also you realize that you're also creating an ecosystem of human support. And that starts the awareness, because what you're doing is you're actually doing it. And if there's a couple of you doing it, you're able to make some impact. When we ran the shop, I used to do the CSA, food programs. We bought all the Casey's food. We were Casey O'Neill's largest food buyer for like a couple of years. And we emptied out his entire food inventory, then we gave it out at the shop to people that would come in that were underpowered with money. And so you could just come on in and there was boxes of vegetables already all boxed up and said, come in and get them for free. But what it did is it allowed us as a business to buy a lot of vegetables. And the impact was you were feeding people in a really healthy manner. And it started to really bring the awareness to everyone around about, wow, this is just better food. And if you're gonna do business, charity by supporting small farmers and feed people is like a very noble, there's nothing derogatory that can be inferred from doing that. And so when you get enough people together, you start getting the ability to get influence on who has an ability to do, because they can write that shit off. And so non-cannabis businesses can write charity off, and that charity is purchasing vegetables and fruits, and you're moving them through those forms. If you want to support the small farmer, man, you got to get off your couch and get your ass out on the street and go to work, because it's a societal change, you know. But the bottom line is that's how you do it. Look around the room and get a couple people that are similar to you, and you start to form yourself. That was trafficking. You know what I mean? Like trafficking was you went out into the world and you recognize someone that seemed to have the same shifty ass nature as you. And then you would know that person you could work with. And pretty soon you started to have a network that was powerful and it let you get things done.
He forgot the question, so he's trying to read my handwriting, which is really just scribble. The question was, what do you think that they could do to help small farmers and craft
We talked about marketing and brand. You are small. I talk to many of you here right now, and you are craft small farmers, right? And so keep that alive. Like craft is meaningful. Look at that appearance. It's a prime example, right? You got all this cores, you got all this bullshit corporation crap, and then you have these mom and pop little beer brands, what are they called? Microbreweries popping up, right? This really cool shit. And then all of a sudden, what happens to Coors? What happens to Lagunitas and all this other shit? All of a sudden, they start popping up with microbrewery type names or collaborative and all these people. So, and it just don't forget that we are the IPA versus the Coors Light. We're always going to be it. We're always going to be one step ahead. Craft is always going to know. You can quality versus quantity, and you can mimic us, but you aren't going to beat us, right? You're not going to redevelop into that. So craft, I mean, in any skill, and I talk about a lot about legacy. Legacy is all across the board, right? There's food agriculture. I mean, that's a whole other topic, but boy, that's a good one too. But yeah, so you can stay alive by doing your craft and branding yourself and talking about your craft. Right? Don't, you're creating something outside the box. You're all are natural. You're what did I say? Natural amethyst. Natural, whatever. Amateur naturalists, right? So amateur naturalists. So you are. You think about that concept right now. Just think about it. You go to college. I deal with soil scientists all the time, and they have no application in field. Right? I didn't come from soil science. I came from field. So it's opposite of pendulum. No one's gave me. I didn't read the book that taught me what I've learned. Right? I went out in discovery mode. Like, let me just ask a quick question. What is a natural amateur naturalist? Who in history is one? Like, anybody think? Darwin, exactly. Okay? Darwin, why?
Origin of species.
Exactly. There's just so much time to discovery. Our native people, right? Native Indian population.
George Washington.
Look at them, right? They're in discovery mode. They didn't write the fucking books that we're reading and being taught. Right? They came up from looking and talking to Mother Nature. The relationship with Mother Nature, right? That was big. So to answer the question is, do you the best you possibly can, right? And share your knowledge and talk about it and brand up. The world needs to hear us. All right? Scream fucking loud!
Oh, what's the question? It's been a long day. I mean, all of that, right? What can you do to help support small farms? Well, if you are a small farm, invest in yourself, invest in your farm, and also get off of your farm because you have to get out there a little bit at least. And craft is king. It is. So share that. Like one of the things we used to do back in the day when we were allowed to do farmers markets and when we were allowed to self-vend, that's also, by the way, fight for your right to self-vend, whatever it is. Okay. We should be able to vend meat and cheese. And, you know, I have a friend who does goat cheese and he laughs because he's a legal cannabis farmer in California now. And he says the most illegal thing we do now, and I never thought I would have said this, is goat cheese. He doesn't have the right to sell goat cheese. It's apparently also dangerous. It's amazing. But yeah, self-vending is huge. And we used to have events like we'd go to High Times in San Bernardino in California, which was the grittiest, like gritty event ever. And I loved it. It was in a big ass parking lot. It was dusty. It was like, you know, people were not our Northern California people. They were not crunchy granola hippies. They were like, you know, they were hood people. And it was really, really fun because they would come up and they'd be like, yo, what's the fire Indo you got? And I'd be like, shove 6 little things at them. And I'd be like, here's 6 samples. You tell me which one it is. They always picked 2 or 3. It was always the same 2 or 3. They'd be like, this one, and this one. And I'd be like, nah, that is all outdoor, organic California, full sun from northern Humboldt or from southern Humboldt County. And they would just be like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And they would leave and they'd bring their friends back. They'd be like, yo, do it to her, do it to him, go, do it. And it was, I loved it because it blew their minds where they were like, this is quality. We had no idea. We used to do blind taste tests. So I would buy something that was like indoor grown and I would put it up in a pre-roll against my sun grown so people can taste it. You got to change the paradigms. You got to change what people think. Okay. I go to cities in like Illinois or something, and you can't find an organic anything to save your life.
Yeah.
California, our organic sections in like our large scale grocery stores that are chain supermarkets have more organic food than they do non-organic. Our Costco has almost every product in an organic version and a non-organic version. These changes happened because we demanded it as consumers. We shared and we said, this one tastes better. I want more of this one. Oh, that's the one that was grown with this other methodology. And then supporting each other. Support your small farms. Join a CSA if you're not in one. Join, you know, trade a CSA if you're in one and somebody, or you offer one and somebody else offers one also. Shop locally, go to your farmers markets, find out what the crafts are that are being done around you. Buy those crafts for gifts. I mean, I live in a really small town. Sometimes I have to shop on Amazon because I need something and I literally can't get it from like, unless I drive 4 hours. But in general, I prefer to buy things locally. I prefer to buy things from a small farm if I can't buy it locally. If I can't find a small business or buy it locally, I'll find someone that's fair trade or organic certified or wild crafted or whatever the blank is that undermines this large industrial corporation wheel that we're all spinning on as much as I can. Like our whole goal, part of this conference is to slowly undermine industrial agriculture by teaching them how to do it better regeneratively.
Before we finish up, and that is businesses follow money. So put your money where you believe, spend your money on things that you believe in, and they will come around. Trust me. Big corporations, big ag, they'll all be farming regeneratively in 20 years because it makes them the most money. It's nothing to do with anything else other than it will make them the most money. But it is you that drives that. You're wanting the best food, the best medicine for yourself and your family. They'll come around to it. They don't have to believe in what we believe in, but they'll come around to it. So yeah, that's what this is about. Spreading the information, spreading that knowledge. Yeah.
Together, we are better together. It's team, right? In numbers.
We're
powerful in numbers. We're weak individually.
We all rise up by helping each other. There's plenty of room for us to all succeed. So, I think that's it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, buddy.
Invite, man. Thank you, Massachusetts. Appreciate you.
Yeah.